Hello and welcome to the Healing Cocoon podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Hayden, with my very special guest, Kim Blair. I'm excited to be hosting this conversation with my dear friend, Kim, who I have known for over 25 years. We first met as fellow massage therapists when we were volunteering for our organization. While Kim was still practicing massage, she was also honing her skills as an amazing artist, beginning with watercolors and moving into a variety of mixed media. I happen to be the lucky recipient of some of her originals in my home, including in my massage room. About 5 years ago, after the passing of her sister, a friend of hers suggested she might enjoy studying the tarot, and she was right. Kim feels the tarot is a new vehicle through which she is able to incorporate her intuition with her desire to be of service to others. On a recent visit from her hometown in Edmonton, Alberta, I had the honor and the pleasure of getting a personalized tarot reading. To say the least, I was blown away by the details and the accuracy and the messages in my reading. Kim's ability to bring her skills and her knowledge and her wisdom and the intuition into my reading made it a really special and meaningful experience for me. This is what inspired me to ask Kim if we could connect with her and have this conversation to give us some insight into tarot and to share with others who are interested in learning more about tarot card readings. And just so you know, you don't have to be in person. Kim offers tarot readings via Zoom, which allows her to work with clients from anywhere in the world from the comfort and the privacy of their own homes. Kim, welcome to the Healing Cocoon podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here and to share the tarot with us.
Oh, thank you, Melanie. That was just a beautiful introduction. I'm really thrilled to be here and so happy to share some information with you and with your guests.
Oh, fantastic. I mentioned in the introduction that what drew you to tarot, and I would love if you could just share a little bit more of that with us.
Yes, of course. Well, when I stopped my massage therapy practice, I was looking for years for some way to use my intuition to help others and to continue with my service for others. I used my intuition myself through my art and for my own good and needs. And then I started to think, well, there must be some way I can utilize it for other people again. And I was always having coffee with this friend and continually telling her, I need to find something, some way to use my intuition again for other people. She said, this was after my sister passed. She said, well, why don't you try tarot? And I said, okay, I've had a number of readings. Yeah, that's a good idea. So I started studying tarot and haven't looked back, actually. It's been perfect for me. It checks all my boxes of what I need in life and what I want to share with people.
I love that story. It's really incredible. And I love that you were having the conversation with the same person. And, because that's sometimes how we find things, right?
That's right.
That they're led to us. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of tarot?
Yeah, for sure. I love research and I really love history. And so when I started delving into tarot, I started to research the history of it, and that it goes back to ancient Egypt, some of the symbols and elements, which I found fascinating because I've always been fascinated with ancient Egypt. But then it wasn't introduced into Europe until around the 15th century with travelers who came from Egypt and explorers and brought the imagery and the information. And then a card game called Tarocchi was developed in the 15th century. And it's kind of like a bridge game, but the name tarot comes from Tarocchi. And also in France at the same time, there was a card game very similar with a Marseille deck. And so the images on both decks are what were utilized in the early 1900s by a fellow by the name of A.E. Waite, and he hired a beautiful artist called Pamela Coleman Smith. And she was a theater artist. And so she designed and painted the images on this first mass-produced deck. And those are the images that are a bit medieval, a bit mysterious, a bit fairy tale-ish, that usually everyone uses to learn the tarot. And so it's a great tool that they developed. And there wasn't another mass market deck until probably 50 years into the 60s or 70s.
Wow, that's incredible. That's an amazing history. And
Mm.
so you're bringing there's, different cultures being brought together
Mhm.
through that and the artwork. And we're going to talk a little bit about the artwork later because that is so precious and it's so incredible to see the deck and to see the artwork. Before we kind of go back to that,
Mhm.
so can you share some of the benefits of someone receiving a tarot card reading? I certainly know from my experience that it really helped guide me with the particular question that I happened to have for you when you did my reading.
Right, right. And I think tarot needs to be looked at as a tool. It's just another tool in our toolbox of life. And by having a tarot reading, you discover insights and nuanced information that help you with decision making. Of course, we all have free will, so you do with it what you like. But the fact that you can discover things that you may not have thought about, or it even confirms things that you're already thinking about and sort of gives you guidance on what to do in a certain situation or your life at that moment in time.
Well, that's what I found with my reading because when we first started it, you asked me to choose a specific question. And I didn't happen to have a question at the time, but after giving it a little bit of thought, um, the question that I came up with, what amazed me was the guidance that I got for that specific piece of information or what was happening in my life at the time, and it was so helpful. So if you don't have a specific question, but want to experience a reading, can you do a general reading for someone?
Yes, of course you can. And I'm just a bit of a stickler for the question, but I can easily do a general reading because sometimes people just want to experience the fun
Mm.
of tarot. And that's what it is. It's fun. It's information, but delivered in a fun and welcoming and safe environment. And you can do with it what you like. A general reading will give you general information, and that's okay too. Maybe that's all you're looking for. But a specific question will give you specific, nuanced information to utilize in your decision making. And that's why when I begin a session, I help the person hone the question down to specifically what they're looking for, because semantics matter. Like, well, how you word the question, wordsmith it, really makes a difference on how the cards deliver their information. Yeah.
Yeah, I found that incredibly helpful. So, what I really appreciated when we started was that you allowed me the time to think about the question.
Mhm.
And so, if I was going to book a reading, obviously I would know in advance that I had that opportunity to look for something specific. But you also helped me hone the question,
Yes.
which, um, well, it surprised me how general my question was, even though I had a question, until we really honed it. And you're right, that made such a difference in what I got out of the reading. So your guidance and your support through even like when I came up with a question and something specific um, was amazing in how it really helped guide me even more, I think.
Yes, yes, I have noticed that when people will start out with a specific question, and then then I'll start to talk a little bit. I don't want too much information to begin with, but I'll ask them sort of generally what they're really looking for. And sometimes people are a little shy about saying what they're really looking for. They don't want to divulge too much, and yet they want more information. So I help them sort of hone that down to specifics. And I really enjoy doing that. That's helping people get what they need the most out of the reading, and that's what it's all about.
Oh, that's so true. That's so true. It was
Yeah.
so impactful for me. One of the things that I noticed before, like once we had the question and we had really honed the question, before you started the reading, is that you took a quick moment um, for part of your preparation. So, what's happening kind of internally for you as you're preparing for the reading once you have the question and once we've set the space for that?
Right. Well, I like to close my eyes and go within. And when I'm having my eyes closed, I'm centering myself, I'm getting ready for the reading. And I'm also asking my guides and my my guardians to give me the information that's the most beneficial for the person I'm reading for and everyone involved. I also ask their own guides and guardians to be involved too, because you want the most specific and helpful information. And that's what I'm doing, is centering myself and asking for that.
Nice, nice. I really like that. Um, Now, I understand that some people can be a little bit shy or a
Mhm.
little bit concerned about the tarot, just perhaps for lack of understanding or thinking that it might be something esoteric.
Mhm.
What would you say to help give people an understanding of what what receiving a reading is kind of about?
Right. Well, unfortunately, the movie industry has sensationalized so many of the tarot cards for their own dramatic uh, effect that it's given tarot sort of an esoteric image that isn't all true. Sure, there's interesting information and intuitive information, but in the end, it's just a deck of cards. And the information that comes from the cards is only delivered by the person reading it. There's nothing to be fearful of the cards. And that's when I'm doing a reading. I actually enjoy reading for first-time tarot clients because I think it comes from my massage days. I like to create a welcoming, warm, safe environment. People can ask whatever questions they like of me, and I'm totally open with answering whatever I can for them. And so I don't think there's anything to fear. And I really hope that this talks helps to take away some of that may be out there.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's a really good point about the movie industry and how it can shape us into certain things. So thank you for that explanation. It was really it makes so much sense. And again, I love how you create that space and allow people to ask you questions and give you information. You give them information. Like it's just really nice. And again, I love how you've brought all of those pieces of who you are into the reading. Like I could really feel it. I could really feel all of that. And, um, my experience of my reading was so wonderful and so insightful. And although I shared my question with you, I didn't share any of the background information behind my question, but I still loved how you were able to bring the cards together that showed me like what I felt like was my own personal story. I
Yes.
absolutely loved it. And again, your knowledge of the cards themselves and
Mhm.
the details on the cards was incredible and added to the full story being told
Mhm.
that helped to guide me forward.
Nice.
So again, you could just really feel all that wisdom and intuition coming through. So you've been able to weave those experiences together and those pieces of yourself together. And I'm just wondering if you can share, like, what can a client expect to experience during a reading with you?
Well, first, I like to create the welcoming environment, and I do most of my readings over Zoom. And so when I do a reading over Zoom, I help the client at the beginning, as I say, with the question. I turn the computer so that you can actually see my desk where I'll be laying the cards out for the reading. And I shuffle the cards in front of the person, and I actually talk about the question so that I'm infusing the cards with that question. And so I shuffle them, and then I've previously decided on what spread I'm going to lay out for that person for that question. And I lay out the cards, and then I show the cards to the person as I'm reading them so they can see them really well. And then I lay them back down. I discuss the reading with them. And then at the end, I bring all the cards back together and sort of give a cohesive analogy and answer to the question asked. And you bring up another good point. I think because of my training as an artist, I really connect with the visuals on the cards and the colors and the elements. The deck that I actually use, called the Light Seers Tarot, is just a beautiful modern deck. And when I first saw it, I just knew instantly that was the deck I was going to use. It just spoke to me. And when I'm doing a reading, it speaks to me each time. So it's a beautiful deck. And when I'm doing a reading, it's a story. It becomes, I think it's a great way
Mm,
to look at a tarot, is it's a picture book. It's a picture book speaking to you through the question, and it's answering your question, and all these beautiful images like pages in a book. And then when you bring them all together at the end, you have a beautiful story of that moment in time or that question.
Oh, that is the perfect way to describe it. And that is the environment that I felt was created for me,
Excellent.
to really be a part of that. And again, the way that you share the stories and the details on the cards is incredible. And that's why I wanted to thank you for sharing about like how you picked your card deck, because as an artist, imagery is so meaningful and powerful.
Definitely. Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, even as someone who isn't an artist, I can appreciate the beauty of the art behind it.
That's great. I actually wanted to show the deck that I use.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah, it's called the Lightseers Tarot. And it's a very modern deck created by a woman by the name of Chris Ann. And I actually have would you like me to show a couple of samples of the
I would
cards?
love you to show some of the cards.
Excellent. So actually there's 4 suits in the tarot deck. There's 78 cards, and there's 4 suits similar to playing cards, but the ones in the tarot, the suits are called Wands, Cups, Swords, and Pentacles. And so an idea of the wands, here's the Queen of Wands, and she's just beautiful. Look at how vibrant and passionate she is. And the wands are all about passion. Of course, again, I have to clarify, it depends on the question asked of the actual meaning of this card, but the basic meaning is passion, and she's full of passion. You can see that. I love that card. And then the cups, here's the 3 of Cups. And it's a beautiful color, the lavender, and these could be 3 friends, or they could be family members enjoying time together, creative time. 3s are usually about creativity, but I won't get into too much detail, but at least I'm giving you an idea. The 4 of Swords, this is lovely. It's like she's cocooning Melanie in her little nest. And she's taking time for herself because she knows she needs to recoup. And swords are about communication. They can be about a lot of things, but communication, even with your own body and your own self, not necessarily with other people. So she's learning to communicate what she needs to herself. I've just got 2 more. So the next one is the 7 of Pentacles. And this shows a young man, but it isn't, they aren't gendered. It's just male energy on this card. He's watching and looking and nurturing what he's sown. So he's looking at, pentacles can be about career. It can also be as literal as gardening, but it depends on the question asked, right? So he's nurturing what he's growing, what seeds he has already planted, whether that be his garden or in his career. And the last one is called the Emperor, number 4. And look at how laid back this fellow is. And again, it's not just male energy. A woman can be this laid back. When this card comes up, it often shows the person is laid back or wants to be laid back. Again, I have to keep saying it depends on the question asked and the cards around it too. So everything ties in, just like I was talking about the story, to create the meaning of the card.
So that brings up, so again, I love the beauty of the cards, and I could just look at those all day long.
Yes.
They're
Yes.
just so lovely. When you do a reading, and I'll just share like my experience of the reading you did for me is how you laid the cards out.
Yes.
And again, you were able to weave in the different pieces of each of the cards together into the story. So do you have kind of a particular way or a way that you enjoy laying them out for people?
Yes, I'm a person who believes in more is better than less is better. Less is more. More is more for me. I love lots of cards. So I don't just do 2 or 3 cards unless I may be at a quick function where there's only 20-minute readings. But usually I lay out 9 to 16 cards depending on the question asked, whether it's general or specific. And through those cards, there is so much information that comes through, and it's so nuanced. And I prefer more cards. I just think that's what we're there for, is information. So why not get as much as you can, right?
Yeah. definitely. And again, I was so blown away by, say the fifth card that was revealed, how you related that to some of the other cards, and then
Mhm.
how it came about with the newer cards that were coming up. So that was really interesting and really cool. That was a really neat experience for that. Okay, so you just touched on doing like maybe a mini reading at an event. So what other circumstances would you do a reading in, like at events, for example, to show like just kind of give an introduction to people? Do you
Mhm.
do group settings, like if I was having a party
Mhm.
and had you, as one of my guests, and for some of my guests to go and see you
Right,
in a
right.
room, or do couples come, that kind of thing?
Well, that's that. Thanks for suggesting that because I do offer parties, kind of group readings, so I could come to your house, and it depends on the amount of time I would like to spend with each client. When I do a reading over Zoom or personally, it's usually an hour is what I spend. You really do need an hour for a really in-depth reading, but for fun and at a party, we can do half-hour readings or 20-minute readings in shorter amount of time with less cards, right? So we can do that. I haven't done any couples readings yet, so that's an interesting idea. Very interesting. Usually I do one person for the hour and it's private. So
Right.
when you're alone, you can ask questions and I can divulge maybe some information that you may not want to talk about in front of someone else. So
Right.
yeah,
Fair enough.
but I
I
can
know.
do a smaller reading and I can do parties. Yes.
I
Mhm.
love it. I love it. That's so fabulous.
Yeah.
Um, so the experience of moving, so many of us have moved online, and I know you talked about doing Zoom and how
Mhm.
easily adaptable it is to Zoom, because you're still creating that same space, you're still inviting that same environment, you're still invoking all of the same intuition and wisdom and experience. Um, how have people enjoyed being on Zoom with you to do their reading?
Well, that's been really interesting because I've done a few readings for people who've had experiences in person with tarot and have never had a reading online. So they were really interested to see if the energy would be the same and if the experience would be the same. And I'm happy to say that I felt it was exactly the same. And they too felt that. One woman I think is really interesting. She said, "Wow, are the cards always this accurate?" And I said, "Well, they seem to be." And she was one who wasn't sure if she'd like the Zoom reading compared to the in person because she thought she really needed to be in person to get the same information and quality of experience. And I'm happy to say that she was delighted with the reading, and I was too. Yeah.
Fabulous. That's amazing. So we can be in person or we
Yes.
can be on Zoom. I
Yeah.
love it. I love that, that's that is one of the beautiful things that came out of the situation over the last few years, is
Mhm.
that we have learned to connect in different ways, and understanding the real meaningful way that we can connect through the
Mhm.
magic and the beauty of the internet. Um, Kim, is there anything else that you want to share regarding tarot? I feel like we got such great insight and an opportunity to learn more about you and to learn more about the cards and what a reading would be, and how to experience that, and some of the things that we could look for.
Well, one thing I'd like to mention is, that most people want to know about relationships, careers, family situations, work situations. So that's kind of the general idea of people asking questions. And a question is often the open-ended question of what, where, when, and why. So
Uh,
that just gives people an idea of what kind of questions they could formulate before they have a reading. And one of the last things I'd like to mention, I think, is that I invite people to explore the wisdom of tarot because that's what it is. It's a deck of cards that offers wisdom and information, and have fun with it. Just find someone you relate to and enjoy the reading. That's what life is all about, having fun, I
nice.
think.
Oh, I can totally relate. I can totally relate. I love that. I absolutely love it. So where can
Mm.
we get a hold of you? How do we book a reading? How do we get some more information from you?
Well, I have a blog, and the blog address, I think you're going to put it into the notes
I
below, or
will. You
okay,
betcha.
because Thank you for that, because it's HTTPS semicolon backslash backslash Kim Blair Tarot, all one word, .blogspot.com.
Okay. So because it's a blog spot, we need to
Yeah,
put that whole piece in, right?
yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
exactly.
Perfect. And it's such a that blogspot is such a great platform, because I
Yeah,
remember when you were using it for your artwork
yes.
and how you used to literally post a daily piece of art. And I'll tell you that, like, your artwork again is just magical and incredible and so beautiful and vibrant. And I know that that was just a wonderful way, and it was exciting for me because every day I'd go to my email and there would be a new image. So it was something that I waited for, and then if I missed one or two, I could go back and check it out. So,
Well, that's a good point, because on my blog, you can sign up for my newsletter. So you'll be the first to know about events or
oh,
opportunities or offers that I'm doing, and sort of keep up with what's happening in the tarot world, or where I'm having a function or an event. So yeah, you can do that on my blog also. And another thing I'd like to say is, because I have an art blog, if people suddenly find my art blog, you'll see it says my other blog. And so you can just click on that and it'll take you right to my tarot blog too.
oh, fabulous. Well, and I do encourage people to do both, you know, like, yeah, get signed up for your newsletter, and then we can stay in touch with you and check out your artwork. So, yeah, and on another note, so if you would like to be notified, if you're watching this and you want to be notified of some other conversations that we have on the Healing Cocoon podcast, just hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell that's on there, and then you'll be notified of any new uploads. So, yeah, feel free to keep following us for more. Kim, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today and the information and insight that you gave us into tarot. And I really encourage people to reach out to you if they have, if they want to have an experience, because again, it's such a fun and safe and creative way to kind of maybe take a look at things that you want some guidance on, or that you have a question on, or that you just might be interested in kind of checking it out.
Thank you, Melanie. I really appreciate your time and having me on your show. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.